A very good morning and happy new year to one and all. Welcome to the fourth day of online faculty development program on innovative and disruptive computing technology under the umbrella of AUN SAP Research Lab. Warmest welcome to all the participants. Not a single event can be performed by without leader. So here, our leader who is not only a great motivator to all of us, but an innovator and a person who added brilliance to this event. He is none other than Professor Dr. Ajay Rana sir. The sales for these events were adjusted by him. Amity Institute of Information Technology has scaled new heights under the able leadership of our head of institute, Professor Dr. Ajay Rana sir. Sir, alumnus of Kurukshetra University, has demonstrated his intellectual, interpersonal, and managerial skills with vast teaching experience in academics and industry, with the role ranging from lecturer to professor to director to dean within a span of 20 years. Professor Rana is chairman, AUN Research Lab, senior member of IEEE, and life member of Computer Society of India and ISTE. He is also the member of editorial board and review committee of several journals. Sir is an avid researcher and thorough strategist with an intent to provide a robust learning environment to his students. He has visited top universities and colleges which have legacy of more than 1200 years of producing leaders on the global front in entire Europe, UAE, UK, and Asia. Sir has been honored with numerous awards and recognitions for his extraordinary work in the field of education and research. Presently, Professor Rana is working as Dean in Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, Noida. He is also Director, Amity Institute of Information Technology. He also owns the additional responsibility as Senior Vice President, RBF Trust of Amity. He is part of the Board of Directors and also serving as advisor to the management of Amity Group as well as various bodies in India and abroad. He is an educationalist, a teacher by heart, an innovator, strategist, and a committed philanthropist with deep organizational ethics, equality, and holding hands of every individual who wish to succeed in life as the core of his life philosophy. May I request Sir to say a few words and address the gathering?
Thank you, Dr. Lakshmi, esteemed panelist, esteemed Honorable Professor S.K. Das, sir, and my dear audience, the faculty members, not only from India but across the globe. Today we have a very great day in the entire history of Amity when Professor Das agreed to share their knowledge, the words of wisdom, and educate us. Professor Das, on behalf of our Honorable Founder, President Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan, on behalf of our President, Dr. Atul Chauhan, on behalf of our respected Vice Chancellor, Dr. Balvinder Shukla, on behalf of the entire professors and the faculty members and the staff of AIIT, and the entire Amity education fraternity, and the behalf of our audience, sir, we are so honored and welcome you on this forum. So welcome from entire this Amity group to you on this forum. My dear students, my dear faculty members, my dear professors across the globe, today we have the renowned academician. If I go through about the profile of Professor Das and about his credentials and his achievement, it will take around 1 or 2 days. But in nutshell, I share the few things in front of you. Number one, Professor Das itself is an education institution. You find about his patent, his PhD scholar, his contribution towards the engineering and technology field, as well as the society, the future leaders of our mother world. He has experts in all domains around PhD scholars, PDF, and many others. And the most important thing, we are in India right now. Some of you are from US and some of them are the Tashkent and Dubai and Singapore. But you know the dedication of Professor Das, around 12 to 14 hours time difference between India and US. Sir, we are so sorry that we take you on this time, when that is the evening or late night at US, and you are agreed, you are so really, I have no words to say thank to you, because that thank word is really a very small word under about your vision and your dedication. So first of all, on behalf of entire group, I say extreme my apology to you that we call you on that time, but salute, and we are learn a lot of things about your leadership. My dear professors, esteemed colleagues, this 1 week international FDP, like about the bundles of professors, but my special thank to Professor Das, and as well as a special thank to all my persons, those who are present here. Professor Das is not expert in one domain, but he experts in the entire overall development of the students and the professors and the faculties. Again, Professor Das, on behalf of entire management of Amity Education Group, from the student fraternity as well as the professors, welcome you again on this forum. Welcome to you, sir. Over to Dr. Lakshmi.
Thank you, sir, for your thought-provoking address, which set a perfect platform. Today's session is on smart living, the next frontier. On behalf of Amity Institute of Information Technology, I extend my heartiest welcome to Dr. Sajal K. Das. I considered it a great honor to welcome sir. Before starting the session, I would like to introduce Dr. Sajal Das. Dr. Sajal Das, whose academic genealogy includes Thomas Alva Edison, is a professor of computer science and the Daniel St. Clair Endowed Chair at the Missouri University of Science and Technology, US, where he was the chair of computer science department during 2013 to 17. His research interests include wireless sensor networks, mobile and pervasive computing, smart environments, cyber physical systems, IoT, crowd sensing, data analytics, cloud cyber security, social and biological networks, and applied graph theory and game theory. He has contributed significantly to these areas and published extensively with more than 300 papers in high quality journals and more than 400 papers in peer reviewed conferences. A holder of 5 US patents, Dr. Das has directed numerous funded projects totaling over $20 million and co-authored 4 books: Smart Environment Technology, Protocols and Applications by Ville, Handbook on Securing Cyber Physical Critical Infrastructure, Foundations and Challenges, Mobile Agents in Distributed Computing and Networking by Ville, and Principles of Cyber Physical Systems, an Interdisciplinary Approach, Cambridge University. His H index is 88 with more than 34,500 citations according to Google Scholar. He is the founding editor-in-chief of Elsevier Pervasive and Mobile Computing Journal and serves as associate editor of several journals, including IEEE Transactions on Mobile Computing, IEEE Transactions on Dependable and Secure Computing, and ACM Transaction on Sensor Networks. A founder of IEEE PERCOM, WOW, MOM, SmartCom, and ACM ICDCN conferences. He has served as journal chair or program chair of numerous conferences. Dr. Das is recipient of 10 Best Paper Awards in prestigious conferences like ACM, Mobicom, and IEEE PERCOM, and received numerous awards for teaching, mentoring, and research, including the IEEE Computer Society's Technical Achievement Award for pioneering contribution to sensor networks, and University of Missouri System President's Award for Sustained Career Excellence. Sir has graduated 44 PhD students, 32 MS thesis students, and 9 postdoctoral fellows. Dr. Das is an IEEE fellow. Highly appreciable portfolio, sir. Thank you and welcome to this platform.
Thank you.
Over to you, sir.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ahuja, for the kind invite. And thank you, Dr. Rana, for the warm welcome. Yeah, namaste, namaste. Good morning. Thank you for the nice introduction. I hope that I can make a good justice of this introduction in the next 45 to 50 minutes time.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
So today's talk, so the FDP that you have organized is Innovation and Emerging Technologies, Disruptive Technologies, okay? So the talk I'm going to give today will be geared towards that. Lots of innovation and disruptions as well. Okay. So I call it smart living. The research area of smart X, if you think of smart home, smart hospital, smart building, smart grid, smart transportation, smart healthcare. So a lot of things are happening in the last 2 decades. And I'll give a glimpse of different things. But no infrastructure can be smart without having people in the mind, because the beneficiaries are the people. So, for example, who cares about a smart building if our lifestyle does not get smarter? If our life does not become more comfortable, more secure and safe, the society is not more secure and safe, right? Or we don't have a better living experience. So with that perspective, our new vision for the last few years has been the smart living. It's not just the smart environment, but smart living. So human is part of the whole game. Okay, so that's the whole agenda in a nutshell. And we think that smart living will be the next frontier, which will be culmination of many different things. And I'll actually give a glimpse of the thing. So I'll not focus only one thing, but it's a guided tour of my research or my group's research in the last 2 decades, I would say, in the whole new millennium. Our department, computer science department here at Missouri S&T, Science and Technology, we celebrated 50th anniversary 5 years ago. Our department started in 1965. When I was a department chair, we celebrated 50th anniversary. And at that time, we had a competition among our students that what will be the future of the department going forward in the next 50 years, right? So the students selected smart computing as the theme. So that's why you see on the right side, this was done 5 years ago, smart computing, and CS is also embedded there. So without much ado, so this is the outline of my talk. I'll give very briefly what are the enabling technologies, and many of these technologies are not unknown to the audience, wireless sensors, but I'll bring in the context, cyber physical systems and Internet of Things, and smart environments. So those are the technological enabler. And that leads to different types of research innovation, very fundamental research that we are doing, lots of different fundings from the National Science Foundation in the US. And I'll touch upon 4 different pillars of this smart living, which are integral component of our daily life, like smart mobility. So mobility includes transportation, human mobility, vehicular mobility, object mobility, smart energy, energy management of buildings, energy management of the electrical grids, smart healthcare, smart resilience, which deals with more like infrastructure protection, or when there is natural disasters, man-made disasters like terrorist attack, how do you bring the whole system back to its normal conditions, right? So there's lots of technological aspects of it. And then I'll conclude. So depending on the time, I'll cover things that should be appropriate. And I'll probably hide many technical details behind the scene, given the interest of the time. I'll give a broader perspective, vision, and the overview. I'll have a lot of references embedded in the slides. But if there is any interest, feel free to contact me. My email address is very simple, sdas@mst.edu. Now, this is one overview slide of different things that we have been working on for last 2-3 decades. So in our group, we do not do much in the physical layer of the communications. So we assume the technology is there, wireless technology, networking technology, device technology. Sometimes we build the devices network to the extent by off-the-shelf components and then build the systems to do experimentation, prototyping, okay? So if you think what I have in the bottom layer, and in my talk, I'll touch upon many of these things, the different types of networking technology that we use. That could be wireless technology, 3G, 4G, 5G, now 6G. And I have been researching in wireless networking, mobile computing since 1995 at a very early stage. Then ad hoc networks, wireless LANs, cognitive radios, so different types of networking technologies, right? From 99, 2000 onwards, we started researching in sensors, wearables. Now, of course, Internet of Things for the last several years. And many times the design is also very robust, more like a living organisms or human body, a bio-inspired. Also, we look at the delay tolerant peer-to-peer networking, opportunistic networking, challenge networks. For example, when disaster happens, how do you establish a network on the fly? We call them challenge networks. Okay. So once we have the networking technology, so basically what you have, if you think about in terms of technologies, we have devices which collect information. Okay. Now the networking technology gives you an opportunity to distribute the information, exchange information. But huge amount of data that you collect, we talk big data, analytics and all, right? So you cannot do that on edge machines or cloud itself, just in one machine. So you look into different types of computational paradigms, could be distributed computing, mobile computing, cloud computing, edge, fog, you just name it, pervasive computing, ubiquitous computing. And then the whole purpose of data collection, exchange of information, computing is to serve and cater to different types of smart services. Okay, and the services could be energy, mobility, health, whatever is the application that you can think of, education. So the smart city you talk about, so these application domains are right over here. Now, this may look like a vertical display of different things: data collection, communication, networking, computing, applications and services. But the security, privacy, trust, reliability, dependability becomes an integral component that cuts across all these layers. Okay. We also look into the other aspects. When humans are involved, there's a notion of human behavior. How does it play a role in the technical context? Incentivization of the people, the social dimension, social networking aspects, the economics, auctioning, game theory. So that also is an integral part of our research. So if you think about communication networking at the bottom, computing, applications and services, but make them very secure, reliable, privacy preserving, at the same time bring human component into the whole picture. Okay, so that's the space that you work on in different projects, different research, fundamental research. And our goal always has been to develop efficient solutions. The solutions could be from the architecture point of view, protocol design, algorithm design, optimization, modeling, performance evaluation, prototyping, experimentation, actual experiment, real experimentation, simulation, emulation, whatever way we think is the best way to represent our solutions. Okay, so that's the space that we should keep in background. But given the theme I have, so you see this transition is from smart sensing to smart networking, computing, everything. CPH stands for cyber physical human systems, and we'll talk about it, and leading towards smart living. Okay, so that's the premise that I'll be working on. So this is a glimpse of the different projects related to Smart X. I don't want you to go through each and everything over here, very dense slide, but the point I'm making, we started researching in smart environments since 2001. So smart homes, so I have highlighted different smart things: smart homes, smart sensing, smart healthcare, that we can see, smart cyber physical systems, a smart grid, cyber physical human systems, cognitive health, integration of smart energy and mobility. These are different projects that we have got funded. Even this year, we got 3 different funding from National Science Foundation. One application is smart agricultural context, but sensors, IoT, cyber physical systems, data collection, wireless networking, harnessing the power of big data and analytics. And then, of course, the security and safety of smart living. And our recent book, which Dr. Ahuja mentioned, Principles of Cyber Physical Systems, an Interdisciplinary Approach, came out October of 2022 by Cambridge University Press. Now, what is driving in terms of disruptions and innovation? These wireless sensors have played a significant role towards this innovation. And that led to Internet of Things, because no Internet of Things device or technology is without sensing and actuation component. Okay. Now, this is an overview of different types of applications, and there are many more applications you can plug in your favorite application, be it environmental monitoring, industrial process control, building, health infrastructure, marine biology or ecology, forest fire monitoring, border security between 2 countries. You just name it. There are plenty of applications are there where sensors are playing significant role, wireless sensors. And that augments, of course, our own physical sensors in the human body. That's why the punchline here is that we live in a physical world which we need to understand, serve, and control. And wireless sensors have played significant role towards that goal. So our power of observation of any physical phenomena, any scientific study has been escalated significantly due to the advent of sensor networks or sensors. Very quickly, what is a sensor? I'm sure that many of you probably are aware of. A sensor looks like a coin, just like this coin. Sensor is very small, tiny, wireless sensor I'm talking about. I can always buy very expensive, bulky sensors, but the wireless sensors are very tiny sensors. And this is the motherboard that you have. Most often it is battery operated because you'll be deploying it fields like mudslide monitoring, earthquake monitoring, smart agriculture, healthcare, and the body area sensor network. So most often these are very tiny devices. You can also have camera embedded in the sensing, image sensing, camera sensing. So depending on what you are sensing, so one important component of a sensor itself is sensing and actuation. That means you can sense some physical phenomena, okay? And you can also take a rudimentary action on that. And temperature could be scalar information like temperature, humidity, pressure, light, velocity. Also, it could be vectorial information like image, sound, ECG reading of heartbeats or something like that. Okay? Now, since it is a wireless sensor, it must have an antenna and very tiny antenna that you can see. This small sensor, I have shown a very enlarged version of it. Antennas are there, but the antenna is very small, so the range, communication range is not that far. So you have opportunity to transmit information and collect information. Okay, so different types of dissemination, broadcasting operation that you can do. Sensors also have some amount of memory that you can do in node processing. So the processing could be either you fuse or aggregate information, you filter information, you do some kind of estimation of the state. Okay, so a sensor node itself has these three components: sensing, communication, computation, and actuation is part of the control, right? I'll define cyber physical system in the next slide, but you can see that the cyber physical system has these components: sensing, communication, computation, control. So wireless sensor is an embodiment of a miniature cyber physical system. And this is precisely the reason that why cyber physical system or CPS cannot be realized without using sensors. And IoT also has a sensing component and actuation component. So sensors came much earlier. Now, when you connect everything to the internet or the networking, that becomes IoT, Internet of Things. So since the sensors are very tiny devices, wireless sensors with this tiny antenna, so you have to build a network to collect information. The network could be static or dynamic, mobile. So it's an example of a simple static network, very simple one that I have shown for illustration. They collect information, and en route, you can do fusion, aggregation. Ultimately, information goes to a sink or a base station, goes to the internet. That I can put in the cloud or fog somewhere, right? I can also have a mobile sensor network where sensors are moving. It could be sensors mounted on the vehicles, on the robots, or humans carrying the sensors, like a smartphone is a huge sensor. We'll come to that. In terms of mathematical modeling and algorithmic development, there are lots of interesting research that we have been doing, others are doing. Most often you treat this sensor network, a multi-hop communication network, as a topology, which can be represented as a graph. But most important thing is that each sensor has an antenna, which is the wireless communication radius. Each sensor has also a sensing capability, whatever you are sensing, the physical phenomena, temperature, pressure, humidity, sound, image. So there is a sensing radius. Okay, it's good to know because these two are force field, physical force field, electromagnetic field for the radiation or the sensing field. And there are different models that one can exploit. For example, we say the sensing nature model could be binary. That means up to a certain distance I sense, beyond that I don't sense. Binary, yes or no. Probabilistic sensing means the sensing intensity varies as you go far away from the sensor. Okay, so there's a I can tell with what probability I can sense well or I cannot sense well. Okay. And most often this topology may not be a static topology. We call that a random graph as a geometric graph. Okay, geometric because two sensor nodes are connected to each other, are adjacent if they're within their radio communication range. If they're not within the radio communication range, they cannot communicate. So that is distance limited. Okay, that's why it is geometric. Now, this is an abstraction. What happens? Let's say I have an agricultural field. I drop sensors to monitor moisture level, soil conditions, temperature, whether there is any disease in the leaves or roots or not, right? So these sensors are deployed and they collect information. Since they are rudimentary sensors, they're resource limited. CPU is limited. Energy or battery power is limited. Bandwidth is limited. Computation is limited. So the algorithms that you design or protocols that you design must be very resource efficient, most often very energy efficient, because you want to keep the network alive as long as you want. So it has to be energy efficient solution. So any solution that you have developed for, let's say, your desktop computer, laptop computer, supercomputer will not work, right? And you have multimodal sensing environment depending on the applications. So if you think about a bottom-up operation, data collection, communication, computation, then once you analyze it, after the analytics, you make some decisions. What to do? Oh, I need to irrigate my field. I need to do a pest control for disease propagation control, or I need to put fertilizer, right? So that decision, actually, I have not shown it, but that is fed back to the environment again. So you can see there's a closed loop, okay? And that closed loop gives you the power of the cyber physical systems. And I'll mention one more thing over here. At the beginning, I said the human is an integral component of the cyber physical system that we deal with, leading to smart living. And the sensors I mentioned so far are more infrastructure sensors, or you can deploy in the field. I can also add on the human body, like a body area sensor network for smart healthcare application, okay? Or implanted sensor to monitor the human vital signs. But at the same time, we carry a very powerful device like this smartphones, right? And the smartphones are not just a multimedia device for audio, video, text communication. Each smartphone has 12 to 14 sensors. We do not make use of all the sensors, but it has. So your smartphone is a physically very powerful sensor because you have a huge amount of memory in the smartphone. It can communicate through Wi-Fi, through cellular and everything. So you can do a lot of interesting stuff. And because of that, so human can be part of the whole solution. So we say human as a sensor, not only just our physical 5 sensing organs, but also this device gives us the power, because I can collect that information, I can crowdsource that information. So human can participate in the data collection process. So it becomes very interesting paradigm. So in a cyber physical human system is a natural or engineered system. Natural system means human body, natural environment. Engineered system means automobile, electrical grid, building, bridge, airport, you just name it. So cyber physical human system is a natural or engineered system that integrates sensing, communication, computing, control, and human in the loop. If I don't put human in the loop, then it becomes just CPS, cyber physical systems, otherwise CPH. And if you see the connection, as I mentioned at the beginning, a sensor has those components except the human in the loop. So that's why sensor becomes an integral component. So at the beginning, I started with the devices collect information, networking, they distribute information. You have a lot of computational paradigm. You make a control and decision action. Human is part of the game, and you develop the middleware software solutions stack. So cyber physical human system is an embodiment of different sets of technologies, but it is not just an engineering exercise to put these technologies together, but developing very innovative solutions, disruptive solutions. And the manifestation could be in terms of a mobile app or any middleware services, given different types of application. I'll talk about that. But there are lots of fundamental problems that you can solve. And in all the solutions that you have developed, very mathematically rigorous solution, technologically solid and applicable, The simple paradigm that we have looked into is called sensing, reasoning, control loop paradigm. So sensing means data collection part. Reasoning is the algorithm development, model building. And then once you take a decision, you affect that decision through a control or actuation operation. And through this iterative loop, feedback control loop, that makes the cyber physical system, cyber to physical to human and back, extremely powerful because you can do learning through this process. So machine learning comes in the picture, different types of deep learning, federated learning, and this loop gives us intelligence building, smartness in the system. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, the cyber physical systems and IoT, they're closely coupled. They are not distinct. There's no rivalry between these two phenomena objectives. Okay. The way I look at it, the IoT is a very micro level concept. The device level, small devices, right? But collection of these IoT devices, sensors together, they build a system level or macro level concept called cyber physical systems or cyber physical human systems. So another way to look at this thing, I'm just setting the stage so that when I talk about some other problems, it will be clear. So think about, we have three different worlds that we are dealing with. One is physical world, could be a physical environment, agricultural feed, flood control, earthquake monitoring, human health monitoring. That's the physical phenomenon. Once we collect the data through devices, IoT sensors and other devices, smart devices, the data goes into a cyber world, digital world. Okay. Then, as I mentioned, human also is playing a significant role, and human has two worlds as well. So this is a physical human relationship network at the bottom, and then you have the online social network in the cyber world. People may not know each other, but they're connected to the cyber world. Okay. So in the cyber physical human paradigm, it's a tripartite integration and interconnection of these three worlds: physical, cyber, human. It may sound simple because I have shown an abstraction, but it's extremely complicated. I'll mention that. Why? Because these three worlds work on different rules and mechanisms. So if you think about, let's say I have a Venn diagram of three worlds, right? A physical world, which is governed by the natural laws. Newtonian physics, for example, electromagnetic laws, relativistic mechanisms, right? So it's a physical, natural laws guides the physical world. You have lots of physics-based model, right? Think about an automobile moving is a physics-based model. Electromagnetic radiation gives the wireless communication feature. And the notion of time is continuous. It's a continuous, mathematics is continuous, but lots of uncertainty, okay? But when it comes to cyber world, it is not governed by natural laws. There's no gravitational laws for the software. Computational models, Turing machine models, software abstraction, and the time is digital. Okay? So think about, I have a physical system. Now it is governed by lots of software embedded systems. A clock drift between the continuous domain to digital domain could create havoc. I'll give a very concrete example very soon, right? Let's take a look at the human world. Human world, of course, we have human body, we have the biochemical reactions, physical reactions, diffusions, molecular interactions, ionic interactions, fine. But our behavior is not governed by natural laws. There are some behavioral models are there. Whether we are rational or irrational depends on our psychology. All sorts of different things. So you see, we are interacting these three different domains, completely disparate. And of course, taking the intersections, you have different phenomena, either cyber physical, intersection of cyber and physical, or cyber human, or cyber physical human, right? Now, let's take a very concrete example over here. Let's say I take a flight from Chicago in US to New Delhi, a direct Air India flight. Okay, Air India flight, let's say that's a Boeing flight or Airbus flight, whatever. And that's a classic example, concrete example of a cyber physical human system, because that aircraft is a physical equipment. Its flight is controlled by the natural laws. For example, the Navier-Stokes equation will guide how it will fly, the aerodynamics of it. Okay. But who is in control of the flight when it is airborne? It's completely an autopilot system, which is real-time embedded system, which is real-time embedded software is guiding the navigation and everything. Even if there is a thunderstorm in between, it will do a real-time rerouting of the flight. Okay, so a physical Airbus or Boeing aircraft completely controlled by an autopilot real-time embedded software system. You have also captain and the pilot sitting who are the human, because they can take emergency control. So, and landing takeoff is done by the pilot and the pilot and emergency control. But every time when it is airborne, it's completely in the autopilot system. And you have probably seen a lot of movies and science fiction movies that if you touch during the autopilot system, you are basically creating an imbalance. The whole system goes chaotic. So you can see that error can come from any direction. If there's an error on the physical system, the sensor does not work correctly, there could be a problem. There could be accidents. If the autopilot system does not work, there is an issue. And if the human errors are there, let's say pilot slept and could not navigate, right? So all sorts of things can happen. So, but our life is at stake on these systems. You know, daily life is at stake. When you fly, you don't keep that in mind. But when I fly, I always treat that, okay, I'm on a cyber physical human system now. Okay, but over the time, so the robustness, dependability, reliability is extremely important because our life is at stake. But this is one example. Think about a self-driving car. Is another example. Okay, think about electrical grid. Nowadays, grids are very modern grids, lots of sensors, actuators, right? You think about an airport, the security at the airport, human health, everything can be monitored through different types of devices. So our life is at stake, and every component is creating a disruptive technology. So our objective is to solve very fundamental problems in a very secure, reliable manner so that our life is secured and we have a comfort and experience which is very rich. Okay, so that's all about the introduction, and I'll be finishing in 1 or 2 more slides the introduction, then I'll pick few problems of interest. Now, why is IoT and sensors so important? As I mentioned, this is again a pictorial diagram. I'm giving you more of a vision and the intuitions behind it rather than specific solutions. We have lots of problems, and you see a lot of references will be coming. So you can think of different types of networking technology which gives the infrastructure. That includes sensors, actuators, cloud, IoT, smartphones for participatory or crowd sensing environment. What we do, we basically build algorithmic solution, architectural solution, models, networking solutions, and corresponding middleware to cater to different applications. Applications could be energy, healthcare, mobility, transportation, water management, disaster. You just put your favorite application, right? So that we have some common framework. So our main contribution in research is developing cutting edge, innovative, disruptive solutions techniques to cater to different applications and services. Sometimes it could be just a mobile app to check somebody's health condition, dietary habits, for example. But the characteristics of such environment is that it's extremely complex. We say system of systems, system of complex systems, network of networks, extremely heterogeneous at every level that you can think of, device level, networking level, computing level, application level, services. Scale is extremely huge, from micro scale to macro scale, depending on a small device, IoT sensors, to a large system like electrical grid. Think of a national grid in India, divided into 4 regional grids, and then all the states and the cities and the villages are served by this electricity. It's a very large, complex system. Of course, the data that you collect is extremely huge. If you think the time series data taken every 10 minutes, 15 seconds, whatever, depending on the sampling interval, how to analyze those data in real time as much as possible. And as I mentioned, the challenge is to make this system extremely robust, reliable, resilient, secure, so that our life experience is smooth, safe, and secure. Extremely challenging, but that's very good for us in computer science and electronics, IT, that we have a lot of problems to research upon. Now, as I mentioned, we have been researching on smart environments since 2001. Our first NSF project was on this topic. With my colleague Diane Cook, we wrote a first book ever on this topic on smart environments from a technological perspective in 2005. So the way we define a smart environment is which can autonomously acquire information from the environment and the interactions with the people to improve our experience into the environment without explicit awareness. Now, this may sound very qualitative because I wanted to keep the vision first, but there's a huge amount of fundamental research questions embedded in it. And we have been actually tackling those over the years. Now, a corollary of this concept means that we are making intelligent decisions in a context-aware manner, which leads to the notion of pervasive computing. Now, two things are very important when you have humans are involved. So here the social, I talk of technical and social. Social is not social networking, but the human dynamics, the social aspect of the human being. Okay, so context is extremely important concept over here. Now, there's some concepts that you can capture through devices, like location of a person or object, mobility, occupancy in a building, but very hard social contexts are, or human contexts are the desire, behavior, mood, emotion, intent. But those are actually very important because if I know somebody's mood and behavior, I may be able to prevent a suicidal attempt. I may be able to prevent a terrorist attack, for example. So these are context awareness. Now, we have been also researching on in the same smart environment context, smart city, but we do not look into just the engineering exercise of it, but develop models, algorithmic solution. So we treat a smart city or smart environment in general, smart home, smart city, smart building, as a rational agent. Okay, so you can see this is a picture of a home which can think. So I instrument it with devices to collect information with networking technology, but it has the capability of analyzing models. So if you think about, let's say your bedroom or your home is smart, you're collecting information and that information is analyzed over here, the reasoning, sensing, reasoning, and then taking action through decision control. And this reasoning is done through model building, algorithmic solution, decision making, machine learning, analytics. That's where the power is. Okay, so you can replace your home environment to a smart city, for example. So our model is very scalable, hierarchical model, so we can abstract at any level of granularity that you want. So the theme is smart living, the next frontier. I've already spent probably 20 minutes or 25 minutes on this thing, but I wanted to give the stage, set the stage first so that we understand how many of these things are interlinked. Okay, so you can think about your favorite application. We have been talking about many of these applications, so I'll not repeat. And what is happening that it's not just smart cities, smart connected communities, we call it, because even your rural areas, how to reach out to the farmers, how to reach out to the agricultural field so that they have a better productivity in the crops. Okay. Now, our research has been centered around those. I'll go very quickly over here. So lots of research on the networking side, lots of cyber physical applications, energy side, healthcare, transportation, disaster response. But I'm a computer scientist, so I look everything as a data. So I deploy technology, devices, networking, computing, but the data gives you the power of the knowledge, harnessing the data, right? And of course, because of the scale of the data, you may not be able to do everything at the edge or the fog. You do either in the cloud or in the high performance computing HPC. But once I harness it, I build the models, I solve it. Ultimately, my goal is to provide better living experience, better comfort, energy minimization of buildings, for example, optimization of the buildings, have a better transportation system with congestion control for the commuters, right? So better healthcare. So that's the whole goal. It's a huge innovation impact, civilian impact, economic impact that you can imagine. Okay, and this is a snapshot. So different types of mathematical models that you are building, sometimes using existing mathematical tools and techniques, but often adapting them in the right context. Okay, so you can, on the left side, I've given some problems that arise in the wireless network, IoT network, cyber physical systems network, different systems, but different types of models. So our backbone of the research is model building, algorithmic solution, machine learning, different mathematical tools and techniques that we build, and then we harness the power of the data. Having said that, I know I spend more time on that to set the stage. So how much time can I spend, Dr. Ahuja? I know that you have other things as well on the stage.
We have 10 minutes more.
Okay. So let me just summarize very quickly some of the application areas. And for each of these topics, I can cover 1 or 2 hours easily. But let me just give a glimpse, because at least you understand the context right now, the different types of disruptive technology, right? So think about, so this is not exclusive. So it's more like an inclusive approach. So think about, you have a smart environment, smart connected community, smart city. What are the different pillars? I've given just the 4 pillars over here. Mobility, transportation is extremely important for any smart city. Let's think about Delhi. You are in Delhi, so of course, transportation is very important. Energy is very important. Health, and then resiliency of the whole infrastructure, city is very important, right? So we have been developing models and developing a unified model as much as possible. So I'll give glimpse of each of these things. What are the things that we are doing without going into any of the details? I have the details, I'll skip them in the interest of time. And I'll take questions. So basically the 4 things: mobility, energy, health, and resiliency, okay? So what are you doing over here? Let's speak one at a time. On the mobility side, our goal is, this is summary of the goals, to predict human and vehicular mobility. Because once I understand those 2 things, then I can manage the transportation, okay? Transportation planning, congestion control, and that also leads to air quality management. And human mobility is also reason for the disease spread, like the pandemic that we are going through, right? Worldwide. So here I have actually listed many different things, the different types of mobility: vehicular mobility, human mobility, and coupled with crowd sensing information through mobile phones. Okay. And what are we doing? So the different types of methodology that we have adopted and developed, very nice set of fundamental research that deals with information theory, online algorithms, machine learning, compression techniques, crowd sensing, game theory, human behavioral models. Because when humans are involved, very important. And since humans are involved, how to do privacy preserving data analytics, right? And I've shown just few things over here in terms of publications. So blue publications are the journal publications. I've given abbreviations of the journals, and black ones are the conference publications. But I've given just some of them to show. So for each of these topic, I'll just show this slide. I have details of each of these a little bit. I'll skip that in the interest of time. But at the Q&A time, if there's interest, I can actually discuss, okay? So that's what we have been doing. Now, what are we doing in terms of, let's say, energy? I'm skipping in the interest of time, but I'll come back if necessary. So in the energy side, our goal has been, you look at the energy distribution, generation distribution side, as well as the consumption side. So I'm not looking into the power electronics or power engineering type of application. I'm looking as a data, because smart grid has sensors, IoT, cyber physical nature on top of the electrical grid. So that generates a lot of data. Even smart meters at the houses, they generate data, energy consumption data, right? So what we have been looking at, energy management of buildings, as well as for the energy consumption side, how to detect anomalies. When you have the sensors communicating through wireless communication or networking through the home networking, that goes to the wide area networking. So for example, in a typical smart grid environment, you'll have household appliances. They consume energy, different types of appliances that is controlled by the smart meter, and home area network is there. Then you have a neighborhood area network in the region or neighborhood that you live in. that goes to the utility companies. So huge amount of computational paradigm embedded over here. Computation, communication, networking, software. An adversary can manipulate the energy consumption out of the smart meter. Okay, and your whole system could be attacked. Okay, that's a different kind of things that you are looking at. Anomaly detection in energy consumption behavior, then mitigating cascade failures, secure and trustworthy decisions. If you remember, some of you may remember in August 2012, India, 80% of the Indian electrical grid failed. The whole country was blacked out, right? And I have analyzed the reports and all, and we know exactly what happened. So that's the kind of things, because the electrical grid are no longer an isolated system, interconnected system in a very complex way. So a tripping of a circuit in an electrical grid in one region can have a cascade effect. And that's exactly what happened. The Northeast grid failed first because there was a more demand than the generation. And that led to failure of the Southeast grid, Northwest grid, and 80% of the country was blacked out. It took 48 to 72 hours to bring back the normal situation. Because if you think about it as a mathematical model, it's a state estimation, because you went to a bad state and there's a perturbation. So it becomes unstable. And that instability basically knocked off all the grids. Okay, so those are the kind of things that you can deal with. So that's why the state estimation come in the picture. And when you look at this data, these are the time series data. You can do data mining, data analytics, machine learning. And the cascade failures could lead to an epidemic, just like the pandemic that we are seeing. So basically, it's an equivalent situation of a cascade failure. And human behavior can be modeled through different techniques, influential methods, prospect theory, incentivization. We look into those. So I'll go again, like very quickly, skip those details over here and talk about the health side. What are you doing? So health side, we are looking at both physical and cognitive health, mental health. Physical health, of course, a lot of research has been there, we have been doing, but cognitive space is less explored in terms of the technology. Let's say people have dementia, memory loss, leading to Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. Now, by that time you detect somebody has a dementia, Alzheimer, I'm sure that if you think about your friends, family, elderly people, you'll find somebody that you know who has gone through these phases or going through these phases. By the time it is detected, it's too late. The question is that can we use devices, wearables, and other kind of sensing technology, monitoring them 24/7 and do an early detection. So it is not to replace the medical and clinical study, but to augment them through technology. And we have been doing a lot of interesting research in collaboration with the hospitals. So cognitive and physical health monitoring, wellness management, dementia detection, activity recognition, all sorts of stuff. And again, the different types of mathematical modeling, theory, publications that you are doing, that's the space. And we have developed lots of interesting systems over here. And this research actually led to the company that we founded called Smart Health Beacons in terms of our innovation. So we have developed our own chair called Smart Chair. We have developed our own wearable. So I should be finishing very soon in the interest of time and take questions. So this is basically the Smart Health Beacons company. We have deployed our system in a hospital for collecting data. And our research actually got a lot of innovation and got a lot of publicity as well. So in terms of resilience, what it means, the technology is there, but at the same time, the technology could go into bad hands. The terrorist attack is a simple example, right? No matter how much security you put in place, but they still exploit the loopholes. That's one example. Also, your infrastructure could be in a bad shape. So either natural disasters like flood, hurricane, earthquake, forest fire, mudslide, you just think, or man-made disaster like attacks, right? So your system could be perturbed, infrastructure could be at stake. So the question is, how do you create technology-enabled solution to secure such environment? Okay, and we have been doing a lot of research for the last decade or more in terms of developing the solutions leading to predictions. Okay, and maybe this slide you can see the mathematically very rich set of solutions that we are designing, different types of theory. but with the goal that our networks are secured, infrastructure is secured, and we can generate alerts in a very early manner. But everything comes under, if you see in an abstraction, anomaly. For a healthcare context, it is a health risk. That's an anomaly. That means our normal behavior of health versus abnormal behavior. Security is the same way. That's the Delhi airport is secure most often, but once in a while there could be some threats. Those are the anomalies. Okay, having said that, so let's just summarize and conclude. And so one book that we published in 2012 on the securing cyber physical critical infrastructure. If you remember at the beginning, I talked about cyber physical human system. I showed over here two wheels, cyber and physical. But if you put a human wheel also, you can see that they're coupling, cyber, physical, human, very complex interactions. And things can go wrong in terms of either error or adversarial attack. And things can escalate. So conclusions. So at the beginning, I said the same, that our simple paradigm has been sensing, reasoning, and control. But the reasoning part is very heavy duty because that's where the power. We're developing models, algorithms, machine learning models, data analytics models, decision-making models. All the theories are embedded over there, but different types of application you can think, culminating everything to social smart living. But the human is part of the whole game. What is challenging? Of course, we are doing a lot of research, but so many things are to be done, right? So smart living, smart city. How do you measure the success of such research, or success of such innovation or disruptive technologies? It's very difficult, right? We have been developing some models, but it's not clear because when you have cyber physical human systems interacting, no single metric will give you the solution. And there's a huge amount of uncertainty coupled with human behavior, which is extremely erratic. We are trying to model. We are working with the psychologists, sociologists, socio-technical research, but extremely challenging. I'll just skip this one. So yeah, so different things we are doing. So there's an IEEE Smart Comp. It should be 2021. This year it is over. So next year in August, so you can just look into smart-comp.org. That's a conference. Call for papers will be out soon. I'm in the steering committee. That's very much dedicated to smart computing research. Okay, and different things that we have done. Pervasive and mobile computing is a journal that Dr. Ahuja mentioned. I'm the editor-in-chief. So if you're doing anything on that space, feel free to submit your fine works over there. This is my last slide, I guess. So this, I'll make a quotation because we are in academics, and I assume that most of the people in the audience are in academics or in research. So this is a profound definition of a teacher, and I take research and teaching very passionately. So I'd like you to read this one. I'll read it. A teacher can never truly teach unless he is still learning himself. A lamp can never light another lamp unless it continues to burn its own flame. The teacher who has come to the end of his subject, who has no living traffic with his knowledge, but merely repeats his lesson to the students, he can only load their minds, he cannot quicken them. So I think we should all keep this in mind. This is not my quotation. Can anybody tell whose quotation is this one? So let's interact because this is my last slide. Whose quotation is this? It's a very famous quotation by an Indian. It's by Rabindranath Tagore. And this concept is also there in Kathopanishad. In the Upanishad, the Kathopanishad, this concept is also there, but he rephrased it in a very nice way. And I think that's the definition of a master teacher because he himself was a master teacher. Okay. Now I'm bringing in the context because I'm finishing over here. So this is the young poet. Of course, most often we are familiar with Rabindranath Tagore in this form. This picture is a very famous picture. You can Google Einstein and Rabindranath and you'll get it. So 1926, they met in Berlin. Okay. Nobel laureate in physics, young Nobel laureate, and of course, old Nobel laureate, and Nobel laureate in literature, right? So Rabindranath Tagore was the first non-European who got the Nobel Prize in 1913. So the discussion was Eastern and Western philosophy. And poet and a physical, but you probably know that the Einstein claimed in his thoughts, ideas, and opinions that many of his ideas of relativity theory came from Hindu philosophy, from Eastern philosophy, the notion of Brahman, notion of absolute energy, relative concept. Okay, so this is my last slide, very last slide. I'll go very quickly over here. So you have black box, which is your algorithm or a device you can think of. You have some input. Let's say you have input, which is a flower bud, and your output. In algorithm, you have an input, you have a program, you get an output. So your flower bud becomes a very beautiful flower. You have a cocoon that becomes a very beautiful butterfly. I wish that I had the butterfly which is flying. So if you think about what is there inside, of course, you can get lots of different answers. And I'll give my own answer. Of course, fertilizer, environment, sun, light, everything is important. But you think about, you put Amity University there as well. So basically, that's exactly the job of academic institution, right? Because you take as input the students who are very motivated, very energetic, and eventually you make them full-blown product through the training, rigorous training. And that's exactly what we do, what you do as well, okay? And you may not know that I am also an honorary professor of Amity University, and maybe some of you know, and that happened a few years ago when I was invited to give a keynote talk and I was inducted. So I'm an Amitian in that sense. So thank you very much. I consumed my full time, but if there are questions, I'll be very happy to take your questions, although it is 11:30 at night, but I don't mind. So it is up to you. If you think that there are questions I can take, I'll be very happy to take the questions.
Dr. Lakshmi and Dr. Sarika, please
Yes,
take the
sir.
questions.
Yes, sir. Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
It was really an amazing session. We have questions in our question answer box. Sir, there's a question from our faculty, Dr. Shubhnalil Som. He's asking, over 75% of healthcare industry has been infected with malware over last year, according to the Council of Insurance Agents and Brokers.
Right.
Now, all the healthcare data is generated through IoT sensor. What is your input to take care on this?
As I mentioned, that I did not go over into the details. So security is extremely important, right? Because I can give you examples, and we have done some experiments on those and developed the models. So think about, let me give you a very concrete example first so that we are on the same page, right? Think about a heart patient has a pacemaker. And nowadays, pacemaker also comes with wireless transceiver and some sensing devices, okay? And any rhythm which goes abnormal in the heartbeat, information can go to the hospital and the nurses directly, or the doctors through apps, okay? So that's reality. That means you have a very concrete application, sensing wireless communication enabled pacemaker, so that any abnormal detection of heartbeat reading can be notified to the hospital doctors, nurses, right? And attacker or adversary with bad intent can put a malware in the pacemaker, because communication is wireless, somebody can eavesdrop, right? And one can create artificial rhythms on the heartbeat, creating a panic, right? So this is a classic example. But having said that, a lot of research is going on. It's extremely challenging because, first of all, the devices, implanted devices like pacemaker or any other device, they could be attacked. Security question. Wireless communication of the data that goes, right? For example, wireless transmission of the brain scan imaging or heartbeat ECG reading is going to the hospital doctors. Somebody can corrupt that information. So what goes there looks normal, but actually the patient is dying probably at the time, okay? So these are very challenging questions. So questions comes in terms of the security vulnerability of wireless communication side, device side. So IoT sensors, wireless technology gives a good cutting edge in terms of making our life much more technology enabled, but at the same time, these things are very important. A lot of research is going on. I won't say that it is perfect yet. And sometimes, you know, about 15 years ago, when Dick Cheney was the vice president of US, at the time George W. Bush was president, he had a heart transplantation. And there was a strict guideline by the National Security Agency that do not put any wireless or sensing devices. because you do not want your country's vice president to be attacked by the malware, right? So the question is very relevant. A lot of research is going on. Still, a lot more needs to be done so that our life becomes more safe, reliable, secure.
Thank you, sir. Very well said. Next question from our faculty, Ruchika Batla. She is saying, what are the challenges involved in cyber physical system in relation with Industry 4.0?
Lots of. We have been writing a lot of papers in that. So 4.0 for industrial process control management, detecting health condition of equipment. For example, let's say you have an electron microscope, very expensive equipment, right? I'll come to the 4.0 in terms of advanced manufacturing and other contexts, but think about just a laboratory setting. I have a very expensive instrumentation, and I do not even know when the instrument may go bad. By the time if you detect that it went bad, replacing an electron microscope is a very expensive proposition, right? But if I can put sensors on IoT and the equipment can be monitored on a regular basis, then I can take preventive mechanism. So preventing maintenance is an important component. So Industry 4.0 also in advanced manufacturing, robotics-based manufacturing, 3D printing gives a very cutting-edge solution that how to do preventive maintenance so that I can have a better longevity of the process control, devices, manufacturing plants, and all this kind of stuff. So Industry 4.0, we are doing a lot of research in that space. We are publishing a lot. IoT sensing has revolutionized that space. When the human skills are reducing, especially in the US, manufacturing is almost gone, the basic manufacturing. It went to China, other countries. They're trying to get back, but there's no human skill set available, right? The only way that you can do is through Industrial 4.0, do advanced manufacturing.
Thank you, sir. Another question from Dr. Himanshu Gupta. What are the challenges to the widespread use of smart living technology other than electricity, cost, efficiency, and security?
You see that I mentioned 4 pillars of a smart living environment, but there are others as well. So think about energy is one, of course, very vital, right? Transportation, right? In daily life, you need the transportation. Health and the resiliency I mentioned, but think of air pollution control. Delhi is notorious. I'm just saying in that sense, but this year because of the COVID, maybe everything is under control. I've seen beautiful pictures that from the city of Delhi, you can see Himalayan peaks, which is completely unheard of, right? So pollution control. And in December, January, you know how the system could be completely clogged in fog. So there are many different things that you can think of. Flood control, earthquake monitoring. So it is cyber physical. Human is there in every context. I gave an example of a flight that I take from Chicago to Delhi, right? So sometimes you have the cyber physical, sometimes cyber physical human. So security becomes an integral component, but even monitoring itself remotely. We just got a project funded for smart agriculture. And in the US, you know, the agricultural plots are very huge, acres and acres of agricultural land. It's not like a small plots, right? So if something happens in the crop in terms of soil, bad soil condition, heat, moisture level, or disease, it's very difficult to farmers are not nearby. It's huge acres. So what we are deploying there is wireless technology, sensing technology, IoT, so that the farmers can monitor them remotely through their apps in the smartphones. So there are lots of different applications. So it's not just healthcare or energy. In every sphere of life you can think of. Think about how to secure your own home, right? So I have the appliances. I can monitor through smart grid. So by monitoring your energy consumption in the house through your smart appliances, because everything goes through wireless, an eavesdropper can easily identify whether somebody is at home or not. Somebody can rob your house. So that's also a classic example of a cyber physical system, because by observing the pattern of the communication and the energy usage over a period of time, I learn it, and I can figure out if the house is occupied or not occupied.
Thank you, sir.
Many different applications.
Right. Very well said. One more question from our faculty, Neetu Gupta. She's saying, how does smart devices fit in Indian context with the fact that there are basic infrastructure and support issues?
see, research is universal, global. It's not India versus some other country, right? It all depends on, if you see that Indian government has announced 100 smart cities or even more. Now, when that will be realized, that's a different question. So it did not come out of vacuum. I have read some of the reports also. Only thing is that I wish that more planning will go behind the scene. So in Bangalore, I know that they are deploying sensors and IoT devices in the lampposts to manage the light intensity, luminosity, energy consumptions, leading to light pollution. So pollution is not just air pollution. The light pollution is also there. You probably know that. So it's not Indian context. So what I'm saying is the affordability of the devices and the applications. So in the healthcare context, it has been there. Think about cars nowadays. A modern automobile has about 25 to 30 processors inside it. Lots of sensors. You talk about window control, right? Cruise control. You are in the automatic mode, so you don't have to go through these clutches and all, because there's automatic driving and all, right? So there are many different applications are there. So it's a question of, I think, cost proposition, how affordable it is in terms of cost, in terms of deployment. And most often, many things have been there in the research in the laboratory. Now, deploying in a city scale, in a country scale is challenging because of all the things that we are talking about. Are there vulnerabilities? Is it reliable, dependable, right? The aircraft I mentioned, the autopilot system has been designed over the last 35, 40 years. They have perfected it. So when you fly, you don't think about it, but you are at the control of an autopilot system, which is a real-time embedded software. So it will take a while to have a widespread use in our daily life. But that's the beauty of research, right? In academics, you can do front-end research. In the technology, it may be realized a few years down the road, but you can always be ahead of the game in terms of developing the tools and methods and technology. Then when the cost proposition is very affordable, then it becomes a technology. And that's, you see, your theme is disruptive technology, right? It only takes a disruptive innovation to change as a game changer.
Thank you, sir. Another question is, can we just connect smart living with neurological field so that we can make handicapped people, not letting them feel they are handicapped, and can increase their willpower?
It has been happening. So in two domains, it is happening. So if you think about, I mentioned the physical and cognitive health, right? So that one aspect is the cognitive health aspect. And secondly, there's in robotic research, there's a domain, I don't work in that, called socially assisted robots. So the robots are also very cognitive, and they can interact through language, through gestures and all, right? Now, the socially assisted robots have been used in the context of stroke rehabilitation patients. Let's say somebody got paralyzed. They have to do rehabilitation of their health, physical health every day or something, right? The socially assisted robots have been found very interactive. People, students or kids with language disability. Because what happens, see, human psychology is that we are not open to human beings as much as to a robot or a device. Because in our inner sense, we understand that's a device, that's a robot, that's not a human. We are more open to the devices. So if a robot interacts, because socially assisted robot, if they interact with people with voice, with gestures, then people are more inclined to cooperate. So in terms of the question, your disability, cognitive impairment, language impairment, rehabilitation, even taking medicine. People who have memory loss, dementia, they forget to take medicine. So you can take help of robots and other technology as a reminder system. So the question was neurological. As I said, dementia is a neurological disease, cognitive impairment, right? So the question is, how do you handle those kind of situations? So our imagination and the sky is the limit. So we can always think in a very innovative out of the box way, right?
Very well said, sir. So one more question is there from Mr. Sandeep Nandar. He's saying, I had a thought of smartphone-based system to monitor the person, which can detect emergencies using sensors, some mishaps, non-activity for long or sudden hazardous increase in momentum, etc. Is there exist similar solution already or someone working on it?
Yeah, see, these are the anomalies, right? So machine learning actually gives you an edge there. So you try to observe the normal operations and behavior, try to classify, and based on certain thresholds, certain observations, you say, oh, does not seem to be normal, right? So misinformation, even in crowd sensing, crowdsourcing, when people are giving information through smartphones, there has been lots of misinformation. So truthfulness is not there. So question is, how do you make trustworthy decisions? We are doing a lot of work in that space, that trustworthy crowd sensing. How do you address those? How do you even detect the information is out? I'll give you an example. A few years ago, if you remember, in Bangalore, there was a huge panic, right? People from the Northeast will be all killed or driven away, right? And that led to secondary, tertiary effects. All the flights were fully booked, trains were crowded. People from the Northeast region were trying to flee away from Bangalore. And that was because a misinformation through social media, right? And through social media, it goes havoc. It becomes an epidemic. So again, like any decision that you want to make through smart X or smart technology, the information source has to be reliable. So the question is, how do you know it is reliable? If the information source is not reliable, your decision will be wrong. And think about a healthcare application, and if I don't give the right information of brain scan imaging, ECG reading, then doctors will do wrong diagnosis, wrong treatment, and that could be fatal. Same thing could happen, border security. Same thing could happen, let's say airport security. But the challenge here is you're doing predictive analytics, machine learning, how to increase the accuracy with high degree of certainty and minimize false alarms. You don't want to evacuate Delhi airport every now and then. There should be disruption for the passengers, disruptions for the airline's business, everything. So minimizing the false alarm, increasing the prediction accuracy, that's the challenge. And in the process, you're classifying abnormal versus normal conditions. So how do you detect information which is not reliable? A lot of research is going on. It's a huge space to work on.
Thank
So
you.
any questions by the panelists? If anyone have any short questions, I think they're the past
Yes, sir.
12 right now. Professor Das go to bed. I think there's some sleeping time. So any short questions by esteemed panelists? With the
Yes, sir.
permission to Professor Das, if you will permit, sir.
No, I'm fine. Yeah. So once you are in the mode,
Good
yeah,
morning.
perpetual motion.
Yeah. So
Good morning,
any
sir.
short
Good
questions?
morning. Good morning, sir, and good evening as well.
Sure.
My question is, although it is quite basic, sir, we have the concept of unresearched labs in our department where we have established 8 labs, like artificial intelligence, IoT and sensor network lab, data science lab, etc. But my question is, like, I do not have any knowledge of sensors. So, but I have lots of ideas. But suppose if I want to implement an idea, so should we have the practical knowledge of sensors, or is it sufficient to do with the help of simulation softwares? Or should we establish a lab for sensors? There should be dedicated sensors, because I think sensors are very short lived. So, what are your suggestions for this to improve our lab in sensor network? Means only the simulation softwares are sufficient, or the sensor should be there, or how should we gain the knowledge about sensors?
See, nothing is better than making your hands dirty. That means you play with the devices.
Yeah, that's
So simulation, you can always, so simulation should be encouraged, because many times you don't want to build a system without even understanding how it should work. So that's why the simulation is very powerful, right? So you build a model, you do the simulation to make sure you have a proof of concept, right? But nothing is better than building a system and making it work. So whatever you think will work will not work. Even to communicate between one sensor to another sensor, establishing a protocol is extremely challenging. Very simple thing. Take a Raspberry Pi and interact with your smartphone or your laptop, you'll see what the challenges are. It will not work the way you think, right? Communication will be disrupted, right? So what I'm saying that cannot be replaced. That means playing with the devices, even a small prototype building, is extremely powerful, lot of learning. So a simulation cannot replace that, right? But simulation is good because you can do large scale, because I can do experiments with 5 sensors. Once I understand how it works, my simulation, I can scale it up, 200 sensors, 500 sensors. Let's see what happens, right? Now, these devices are becoming cheaper and cheaper now. Now, how much you should know, that's up to your interest, right? And most of the sensors nowadays, when we started doing the sensors, only way you can program the sensors were through microcode, the crossbow sensors, right? But now sensors, they come up with, let's say, Java platform, Python platform, C++. So it's much easier to program nowadays, right? So I would say that, say so the first you ask them, say, okay, this basic question, I don't consider anything is basic. So most basic questions and fundamental questions are the important ones, because we have to understand very basic concepts, how it works, why it should work, right? Most often we talk about many jargons, many things, but we do not go into the depth of it. So my earnest request to all of you would be, and to me as well, try to understand the fundamentals and give the basic fundamental concepts and knowledge. If that is clear, then we can build anything.
Yes, yeah, that means the basic, at least some basic sensors, we should have the practical knowledge, and we should make a lab for it. And after that, the scalability and other one we can do with the help of simulation.
You can easily do, but understand, as I said, even I gave a PhD student of mine just last year, just communicate with Raspberry Pi with a sensor and your laptop and your smartphone. And that itself is challenging, because these devices all have different protocols, different technology, how to make it work. But that experience is rich. And once you know how to work, then you can apply to many different contexts, right?
Dr. Sarika, in fact, yes, sir, you are 100% right. I think there's a lot of time by Professor Sajal K. Das. In fact, I share the one moment in front of you, Professor Das. Dr. Sarika is so humble to ask all these things. In fact, my 30 faculty members, those who are the panelists, we have filed around more than 150 patents. Those who are related to the IoT and IoE and the wireless sensors, and the many, those who are accepted by the industry too. Right. So recently, when we established our own research lab, we have received around $17 million. This is the grant by the different agencies, directly from the government to the government as well as the education sector. So 15, this the million, this the grant we have received this time within 3 to 4 months. So we always need your help, your guidance. And sir, you are Amitian, and we the one strong quotation is that whenever one time you're Amitian, always an Amitian. I go through your entire presentation minutely. And sir, you love your country very much. In your example, this CPH system, you have mentioned about the Air India flight. What a beautiful example you had mentioned about the Air India flight, how this Air India flight related to your problem and the system. You also covered the power grid, the system as well. Okay, how the power grid in your entire presentation, you have covered very minute things. I think we Indians, I think you stay in US many years, 30, 40 years, but you love your country. You touch the concepts of Sri Rabindranath Tagore ji, that about how the philanthropy is. And the last slide, sir, I like your last slide when the one kid pray for God with the dog. And when I see the slide, I remember one thing, that is not dog, that is God, if you reverse the dog. So these are the one kid and the one God simultaneously pray each other for the society. I remember the word by our honorable founder president. I call him as a son, as a father of modern education system with respect to the private education across the globe, as well as our president, Dr. Atul Chauhan. IoT and IoE, these are the words. But Dr. Chauhan said, no, beyond the boundaries, we have the one word as well. And he designed the word is IOV. And that's why Amity is Amity across the globe. IoT, yes, we have learned a lot of things from your presentation. IoE is the Internet of Everything. But according to Dr. Chauhan, according to the philosophy of Amity, and I have learned a lot of things from you, sir. IOV is the Internet of Values. How we use these technologies for the betterment of the society, for the correct use of these devices, for the correct use of the system. So we are so thankful to you, sir. Convey our regard to your family, convey our regard to the man and the kids. And so sorry that
Thank you.
we bother you for a long 1.5 hour and about your busy schedule. So on behalf of our honorable founder president, Dr. Ashok Chauhan, and our president, Dr. Abdul Chauhan, we are so thankful, sir.